Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com. For almost 50 years, Midway USA has been America's go-to source for just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Go to MidwayUSA.com to see our latest deals and promotions and take advantage of our super fast same-day shipping. If you need a cooler, a new fishing rod, another rifle, ammo, or a reloading press, you can find it all at MidwayUSA.com. Thanks for your business.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And we're here with Cameron Derr. You might recognize him from some of the Exodus stuff, some of the Deer and Gear podcast. And now he does a lot of stuff with the Hawke Optics. And we haven't done a gear podcast in a while. And I ran into Cam. I think Greg introduced us like at one of the NRA shows a few years ago. And we kind of talked about it a little bit. And I just never got around to it. And, you know, I think he and I going back and forth a little bit have the same thing. Like we kind of fell into like a really good system that we've, you know, and just kind of got away from the gear stuff. But this year there have been some things where I've like, I just need to do like a gear podcast again. So I'm like, I need to reach out to Cam. So here we are. So how are things going for you, Cameron?
Things are going good, man. I appreciate you thinking of me when it comes to gear. I always enjoyed doing the Deer Gear podcast. It was kind of like what I was most passionate about inside of the little whitetail niche that we live in. I was just always geeked out on trying new things and trying to find exactly what worked. And through that process, I did find what works best for me. And like every year I think I would focus on a certain area of my gear. And like 6 years down the road, you kind of fall into this system and maybe I'll change something if there's a huge upgrade or something that comes out that's like really going to help me. Then I'll make that switch. And this year I did add a couple of things, but it's been a while since I've switched anything because I just have a really efficient setup that has worked for me, and I can't. You could run in circles trying to chase down gear, so I just kind of wanted to stick with something that worked.
Yeah. And so it's funny because I forgot I was going to start this off and say like so. You know, when did you decide that you were going to just go strictly with the crossbow?
Yeah. That's a sore subject. Yeah. Especially so it kind of ties in a little bit with my new position with Hawke. So Hawke kind of was put on the map, so to speak, in the U.S. because of we make really good crossbow scopes, like really good crossbow scopes. And we had a new crossbow scope come out this year that's like first of its kind. It's the first focal plane crossbow scope that's like it's a really great crossbow scope, and they wanted me to do like the announcement video, and I was like, guys, I can't do it. Like I just spent like the last 4 years hosting a podcast about compound archery arrow builds. Like I am not a crossbow guy and I cannot promote that. So yeah, that's just a running thing. I had a conversation with one of the sales reps today. He's like, got a guy that killed a buck with our crossbow scope at 80 yards. Here's the picture and stuff. I was like, I'll post that he killed it, but I'm not going to say he killed it at 80 yards. I cannot ethically promote that.
Have you seen that? I mean, I'm sure you've seen like the little memes and stuff. There's that guy Trent Ellis, and he does all that stuff.
Yeah.
Have you seen the one with the crossbow
I don't know.
thing? Basically, and I mean, if somebody's listening to this, like, whatever, I'm sorry. Maybe this is in bad taste or whatever, but essentially he's doing one of these videos where he walks into a bedroom and it's supposed to be like his son is like in there, and it's basically like his son is coming out as gay, but he's saying that he just, he realized, he's telling his dad that he just prefers a crossbow over compounds and recurves and stuff like that. And he's like, there's no way in my house, somebody like, who knows about this? Who knows? Who did you tell? Like, and you're not going to post that and say, I shot it at 60 yards and I shot it with a bow. It's not happening. Not under my roof. Like, so
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, just not with a bow. That's not archery. And I don't say that about like the crossbow. I say it more like if you're gay, like, and that's offensive to you or something. Like the crossbow thing, it's not archery. So whatever. And you probably haven't heard this. I know I've said it on here before, but my daughter, she's now 10, and she goes to our Bowman's Club, and on Sundays she shoots the traditional archery league, and she's talking about, and she's not competitive, like she's not good, but she goes there and has fun doing it. It's just something to do that's fun, shooting archery. And, she was like, well, when can I hunt? And blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, do you think you're ready to hunt? Like, no, I'm not very good. And I said, if you want, we can get you a crossbow and you can hunt. And I said, I know we talk about crossbows that are like not for able-bodied men, but for a 10-year-old girl, if you want to go out and spend some time and get more hours in the woods to hunt, it's a really long season. And she just looks at me and she says, Dad, I think it's kind of lazy. And so,
Oh, wow.
so like I said,
Yeah.
more for
I
that.
want to make sure I state my stance on the crossbow situation. I know this, I don't want to derail this conversation, but I do think they have their place. I think they can be a good tool. And I think there are people, like, there's even able-bodied men that I would rather be hunting with a crossbow if they used it correctly. What I don't like about it is that it promotes that you don't necessarily have to practice, and two, it promotes long-distance shots, and I just really don't like that portion of it. Like, there's friends of mine that I know they won't dedicate enough time to go shoot a compound bow, to go hunt ethically. And I'm like, just shoot a crossbow, but shoot 40 yards and in, just like I am with a compound bow. Please do not think that this just allows you to miraculously shoot an animal at 60, 70, 80 yards because it shoots 500 feet per second. It's still a projectile moving slower than a bullet. And if you don't practice with a broadhead at 60, 70, 80 yards, you don't know what that arrow is going to do. So that's my biggest gripe with that tool, is that it promotes unethical shooting. And if we promote that 70, 80, 90, 100 yard shooting an animal with a crossbow, it's going to ruin the sport.
Yeah. And I've heard guys say, and I've talked to guys, and even some of my friends have like not like really come out and said it, but they've like kind of like hinted around about it. Like, there's just some deer that are really difficult to kill, and they like know them, or they have them patterned, or it's too thick or whatever. And they're like, man, if I just got a crossbow and I got on the ground, I could get in there close enough. And like, and you said the word tool, and I hate, it's always tool in the toolbox type thing. And it's just like, my father-in-law and I were talking about, we're getting these deer on camera, and I'm pretty sure that's a deer that I missed with my bow this year. And he's like, but what about with a gun? And I'm like, I don't know. There's some really big deer there. And it kind of like goes to the same thing. Like when you say like it's a tool, it's like if you just wanted to kill them, like that, the allure is killing them with like equipment or whatever. And, I've talked to I forget who it was, but it was like very poignantly put about the distance that you shoot these deer at. And they were talking about like, you know, shooting a compound and shooting a deer at 60 yards doesn't do the same thing for them because it's not as like intimate, you know, like you weren't right up close and personal. And like, you know, that's a really interesting take on it because, you know, you still, I mean, I guess it's really hard to get that close. That's part of it. But it's arguably more difficult to make that shot in the moment with everything else going on and being in the woods and branches and all the other stuff than it is to get that close. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I just thought that was an interesting take, but, you know, and, you know, as we go along in this conversation, one of the things that I want to know is like, you know, some of my friends, we've talked a little bit about like, what's the next thing? You know, it was saddle hunting, lightweight gear, this type of stuff, but we've joked around about like there maybe like the DIY hunter or whatever. But there really isn't like a badass, like YouTube hunter or like type guy that's using a crossbow, like a public land kayak saddle crossbow guy. You know?
Someone that comes to mind that, he's not a YouTube guy, so to speak, but Steve Shirk. Steve Shirk hunts with a crossbow.
Okay.
He's a guide in Pennsylvania, and he's we do a lot of content with him on his trail camera studies and stuff. But he hunts with a crossbow. He's kind of like, I guess, the closest to that. But to that point, when we're promoting the Hawke crossbow scope, and like I'm trying to get people on YouTube to use it, I'm like, I don't know who people that hunt with a crossbow go to get their information about, like, because like no one cool is like promoting the fact that they use it.
Right. Because I mean, it goes back to that Trent Ellis thing. Nobody's come out of the closet. Like, everybody's doing it. They're just not talking about it. Right.
There's two stipulations. If you shoot it with a crossbow, the crossbow needs to be in the photo. You need to be proud that you use that. Just like a high fence. If you shot it in a high fence, the fence better be in the picture.
Leave the ear tag in.
Yep.
So what is your like setup right now? Like what are you using, and like we'll kind of get how you landed there.
Yeah, sure. So saddle new for this year was the Method 3. I was using the Method 2, and then I messed around with I used the Method 2 and then the Timber Ninja Ultimate kind of simultaneously. And I would lean more towards the Timber Ninja Ultimate more because I wanted to eliminate a pack. I didn't want to take a pack, especially early season. So the Timber Ninja Ultimate allows you to stow your sticks on the back of the saddle. Loved that feature. But the Method 3 came out this year, and I was at the Mobile Hunter Expo for Hawke, and I got my hands on that thing, and I was like, I mean, it's the biggest upgrade in a saddle that I've seen in a long time. Comfort-wise, feature-wise, I needed to make that change. So Latitude Method 3, tethered 1 sticks. Started the Gen 1. The Gen 1 tethered 1 sticks. I've been using them ever since they first came out. The Latitude X-Wing saddle platform or the new profile platform. I kind of go back and forth, but
the Gen 2.
What's that?
The Gen 2?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. The Gen 2. The X-Wing was I've used that for like the last 3 years, and then I just got the profile in October. So I've been using that a lot. But I like those both. Two-step the Ultimator, the two-step Ultimator on the bottom step. And that's the run and gun setup. Tethered fast pack is by far the best pack that I've used. I have the Ranger 22, and I really like that one too. But the tethered fast pack, just the pocket configurations and everything, the size of it, it's been the best pack that I've used. And that was a big change for me. I tried to eliminate a pack, and then I went to like the Sitka tool belt fanny style, I was just trying to be as minimalist as possible. And then I went on like my first true out-of-state DIY public hunt in Iowa in 2022, and I was like going a mile deep into public, and I was like, I just need a better pack. My pack situation sucks. So I went home, got the tethered fast pack, and I've been using that ever since, and I don't have any complaints with that.
What is the volume on that pack?
I want to say it gets real weird because the internal volume on it is not a lot. I want to say 1700, something around that, 18, 19, in that sub 2000 range. But the pocket configurations on the side, some of them stretch so far that it like eventually ends up like almost doubling the amount of stuff that you can take. There's a elastic pocket, and then there's a zippered pocket, and then there's another slide on the side of the pack. So you have like 6 pockets on each side that make it really versatile.
Okay.
I'm going to look this up while you ask your next question.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of like the same way. Like I've gone like down the rabbit hole, and I was not a 2-panel guy, and I've used all the Latitude ones, and I actually bought the first like Archon, like that was the next one that came out basically after the first Latitude method, and that thing was just terrible. I don't. The pieces were just too big. They just weren't proportional, and there's just too much moving around and all that stuff. But I would agree with you that Method 3 is, in my opinion, like what a 2-panel saddle is supposed to be. Like, I am not crazy about like running the pouches on there. I like the pouches. I like those operator pouches. But when you pull the little straps, like they're always in the way. So you have to move them out of the way. And that gets annoying. And if you don't get it perfect, then when you're walking, it falls down. And so that is a little bit of a fiddle factor. But the magnets are pretty strong, and it does hold up like when you're taking it on and off. And if it's together, when you throw it in your truck, it doesn't come apart like the first gen did, which was awful. But as far as comfort and padding and all of that, I've probably sat in it. I probably have between 20 and 30 sits in it this year already. And I mean, I haven't had like one uncomfortable sit. So
that's the biggest thing, was like how noticeable the comfort change was. Like I went into a tree that let's just call it October 12th with the Timber Ninja Ultimate, and then the 13th sat in the Method 3, and I was like, whoa. Like, I thought the Ultimate was comfortable, and I thought the Method 2 was comfortable, and it was like I had that same experience when I went from the tethered Phantom to the Cruiser XC, and the Cruiser XC was so comfortable. And I was like, man, I thought the tethered was comfortable. It's not at all. And then I wouldn't even call the Method 2 comfortable after sitting in the Method 3. It's so much better.
The thing about the Method 2 is like I never, and talking with Greg Litzinger, he was the same way. Like we never pulled it apart. Like we just left it together and just kind of moved it around.
Mine was similar that way. It was just like one bigger panel.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was perfectly comfortable that way, but as soon as you like moved it apart, like I don't think it like dug in or wasn't like uncomfortable, but it just wasn't. I guess it didn't feel like natural. Like where, however the Method 3, however it's padded is like perfect. It just feels comfortable, like it conforms to the shape of your body without like digging in, or like I feel like it doesn't even like compress your clothes down the way like any of the other saddles do.
Yeah, I love that thing. I like the way that I can take my sticks up with it. The only gripe I have, I actually prefer to use suspenders with my saddle because I just hate when they ride down. I don't like the belt. I'm probably gonna switch my belt out for a buckle belt. I just can never get it tight enough. Like I don't like that. I do find it in sometimes sagging. I can solve that with suspenders, but it doesn't have like traditional suspender loops on it. You have to use like a Molly, or you have to use Latitude's suspender system that have the strap up here, and I don't want that. I have like First Light suspenders that come with my pants. I just want to strap those on. So I might even have my fiance just sew on some loops that I can put suspenders on it. But I prefer it's more comfortable going in and out with the suspender system.
Yeah, there's no way in hell I would sew a buckle on it. So, like,
No?
do you use the leg loops?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Like, I'm no metal, no nothing. Like, minimalist as it gets. And that rope belt, like, I don't really have any problems with that. And I guess I've been using those saddles so long that I'm just used to like the way that works. So
I was too with the Method 2, and then I had the Timber Ninja with a buckle, and I liked that. I just liked it a lot better. But I also use suspenders on that because I would carry my sticks in on that Timber Ninja, and I just had to have suspenders. But it just keeps the top panel up a little bit higher. It's more secure. I don't have to worry about it falling down. I just prefer it.
I felt like the more stuff I put on the saddle, the more fatigue I got, like in my hips.
I can see that.
Like, and maybe the suspenders kind of take some of that away, but like, especially like when you were talking about like out of state hunts or whatever, like particularly there was one trip to Ohio where we were walking in and out. And man, it was like really noticeable having a lot of stuff like in that saddle. And with that tethered fast pack, like before, last year I got the Ranger 22, and like when I first saw it, like I saw it like at ATA or like somewhere, and I was like, this thing is too small and it's going to be like loud. The material is like, and I got it and I took it out to Colorado, like as my carry-on and my, then I used it as a day pack, and I didn't use the outer panel. And I was like, okay, it's all right. It's not loud. It's not as heavy, because I was like, oh, this thing is heavy. Like I was like poo-pooing it before I even like started using it, and, but I love it for like whitetail. Like I used it and I was like, okay, this is going to be okay. But I feel like it prevents me from bringing too much stuff. And before, like using like a Badlands Super Day pack, because I kind of like everything that you said, like back when I used a climber, we went from these big Cabela's fanny packs to then backpacks to then I was using Lone Wolf Sit and Climb with Badlands Super Day pack, and it was like, oh, we need this, we need this, we need this, and I just carry so much extra stuff. And then this pack is enough for everything that I need. I can add stuff on the outside with that panel, and then the inside allows me to bring enough stuff, and then if I'm going to add anything, I really have to think about it. Like, how am I going to bring it? And that's what I like about it. But prior to that, what I would have said is like, somebody told me this. I think it was Brian Keefe from BK Outdoors. He actually makes a really nice set of suspenders, kind of like doubles as a gear strap, all sorts of stuff. It's really, really pretty cool product. But he said you got to check out the Kuiu Venture Divide 2000. That pack, so I bought one of those, and that pack was really awesome, because when you were saying that about the tethered fast pack, it like is able to expand and contract, and it's got those little like spandex pouches on the side where you can put a whole bunch of stuff in it, but they retract down to nothing. So it isn't like flopping when you don't have anything in it, which some of them do.
Yeah.
And depending on the platform you have, and I don't remember. So I had the X-Wing for a while. One of my buddies wanted to try it. He gave me the Rebel. I mean, I used the Rebel for a while. Then I had the Profile. The Gen 1 Profile didn't bite. It bit the tree just fine, but it was like the jaws had the wrong angle on them or something. So like depending on the tree, when I was on it, it loosened up a little bit. Like the Gen 2 is super. I mean, that's incredible. But the Gen 1, I don't know. I couldn't get it right on the tree. It was very, very frustrating. I don't like platforms to begin with. So that was real frustrating for me. But like that Venture Divide, it has a flap in the front of it that fits like a Predator platform, like that shape. It'll fit that perfectly, and it goes right inside of that pocket. So anything that has that same relative dimension, it'll fit right in there. But then it opens up in the middle, and you can fit a rifle down in it. And then if you're not using that, what I did is I wedged my doils down in between it, and I just zip tied it shut, and that's what I use for my bow rope. And then I just took my outer layers and wedged it in between. Sure. And then I still had 2 pouches where I could put stuff in and out.
Yeah, that's super intriguing. That's one of the things. So Fastpack, by the way, 1,000 cubic inches internal. On the outside, you can get up to 800 cubic inches more. So it could be an 1,800 cubic inch pack. So real small profile to get that. And it does have the additional flap on it that you can strap everything down, which is nice. But going from the Fastpack to the Ranger 22, the doils stayed in one of those pockets on the Fastpack because there was 3 on the Ranger 22. It only has 1 on each, and my Fastpack or my doil stays in one of those. So now I only have 1 pocket on the outside.
That Ranger 22 has grommets in the bottom, so just put it in the bottom of your pack and run it through. That's what I did.
I could do that. Yeah. Do that.
So that's how I've got mine on there, and I like that. And now with like filming and all the stuff, like that kind of takes away like some of the space. So I go back and forth about like, because there's no way I would get the Ranger 33 just like, because I would say like I'm like more on the minimalist side, and I try to bring as little stuff as possible, which is counterintuitive if you're filming because you're bringing a bunch of extra shit that like nobody needs. But that 33, even like when you see it in front of you, is like huge. And so you're talking about, even when I look at that Fastpack, like in person, it seems big. I don't know. It just looks big. So the fact that it's 1,800, that it doesn't seem like a lot, but I guess it has the ability to expand. So it does give you more. So it probably will allow for a lot of storage.
I've never needed more. I've never been in a situation like where I couldn't take everything that I needed with that.
So, yeah, that's interesting. So, like, when you were trying out all different stuff, like, like I said, I tried like the Badlands Super Day Pack. I like that. Like, how did you end up there? What did you tried prior to that? Like, anything that was like, because I went through like basically all the trophy line packs. I tried those, and some of them weren't rigid enough. That Plateau pack was pretty good. But I couldn't find a way to like put the platform on it good enough. Like the sticks, it carried the sticks just fine, but just having the platform just like strapped to my back was like not for me, you know?
Yeah. I did that with the Sitka tool belt. So I would strap the sticks to the bottom of that tool belt, and I would just wear the platform, and it just at that time though, I'm using the Mission or the Trophy Line Mission platform. It's just a giant hunk of metal that has this rod that just drives it in your back, and you'd have to mod up some form of pad to take that away. So that was a terrible system. I would use the hamper from that Sitka tool belt. It has like a hamper style thing that I would just end up strapping my platform to that, and that seemed to work okay. But they're just like, if you needed to take outer layers and stuff, you were just done. You just couldn't.
So that mission platform, did you buy that on purpose? Like, did you think that you needed like a huge platform?
This was the first platform I ever used getting into saddle hunting. And yeah, I thought I would need like a tree stand or something to be comfortable. And I was like, oh, it's overbuilt. It's 6 pounds, man. It's like, this thing can't fail. And I used it for one season. It was way overkill.
Well, you were right. And it's funny because I talked to Sean and those guys about that, and I was like, man, what is going on with this? And like, it made total sense because they, at that time, like nobody knew, like you were trying to like convince people about saddle hunting. You're trying to say, okay, well, you know, you're trying to get them to like dip their toes in, like, come on over. And everybody thought you just stand on that. So they just made a really big platform and we're like, well, here, try this. And like the guys that had done it before, they're like, you don't need that, but you couldn't convince anybody. So they're like, oh yeah, I just need the biggest platform. And I remember telling everybody like when that came out, they're like, I'm going to get one of those. And I'm like, that thing weighs as much as like your lone wolf. And like, it's like it's going to be a great platform, but you don't need it. And you're going to realize that really quickly, you know?
Yeah, that happened. I mean, there was times after taking that, I was like, what am I actually doing with this? Like, what's the goal of this platform? Because I could, like you said, I could be using a lone wolf and have a full platform and a seat. So I ended up going kind of opposite. I was like, well, what do I need a platform for then? And I would try like the different attachments that would just go on the top of your stick and replace that. I tried that for a little while. I find myself standing on the side of my platform a lot. And I didn't like how the stick adapters would take side pressure, because depending on your stick, they didn't take side pressure really at all. So I got away from that. I'm not a guy that hunts in the same tree all day, ever. If I'm doing an all day sit, I'm typically in a area in the morning, and then 2-3 o'clock I'm going to change to another evening location. So I don't worry about fatigue too long on something like that. So I thought just standing on the top of my stick would be sufficient. I didn't like that solution really at all. And that just, the X-Wing was like, okay, it's not this overbuilt mission. I did go from the mission to the EDP because that was smaller, but it was still just really it's clunky. Bulky is the right term.
It's not like sleek.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I do like, and like when I was talking to everybody about like platforms and like, you know, saying like, okay, which one are you going to buy? Like, which one do you recommend? Yada, yada, yada. The thing about Trophyline is like, yes, all that stuff was like super overbuilt, but those guys, you know, that stuff was basically coming from Novix, who those guys know about casting platforms. And, you know, I mean, they knew what they were doing, and they knew, like, I don't want to say like they wrote the book on it, but they know, you know, that was like, if I remember correctly, like that's where a lot of the lone wolf stuff was coming out of. That's how all the, you know, so those guys casting that stuff, that was like that's what they thought it would take to not break or whatever. And if you remember like the first generation of the tethered stuff, you know, there was a lot of issues, and it was like, if it looks like this, then, you know, send it back and we'll send you a new one and whatever. So again, back to that like original stuff when, you know, they were learning or whatever, those first generations of things. Trophyline was like, well, we're just going to overbuild it, and, you know, but the EDP was a great platform.
Yeah, I used that one for 2 seasons. Do you remember the XOP Edge?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I had one of those.
Cody actually, in his advertisement, like drove his van on top of it. And it's like, if it can hold a van, it can hold you. It's like that was kind of the idea behind it. But that thing still weighed like
So
6 pounds.
the funniest thing about that, I bought one of those, right? So that thing was huge. It was 5.4 pounds, I think. Very heavy. It was pretty cheap, but I think they really, really missed the boat on that because, like, did you ever buy one? Did you see the packaging? Anything like that?
I bought one and had it for like a week and sold it.
Okay. So one of the things that stuck out to me about that whole deal, right, is that platform is the only platform, and I bought a lot of them. It came with a safety harness, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that safety harness was huge.
It's terrible.
And it came with all the big giant, like steel, twist lock carabiner deals. They weren't carabiners. They're like those, I don't know what they are. They're like turnbuckle, I don't know. Somebody, the links, you know, that you twist together. And it's like, you could have charged like $60 more and threw that crappy ass Ranger saddle in with it, and it probably would have saved them money, and they'd have sold 100 times more of them.
Yeah.
And because they were selling that saddle, because I bought one of those too to try it out, and I didn't even like, I mean, I didn't do what you were supposed to do, which was like put it on, figure it out, and then cut the straps to fit and all that stuff. And you had to make your own lineman's belt with the rope, and then you had to make your own tether, and then you had to make your own bridge out of the rope.
No, thank you.
And it had like all that stuff that comes on a safety harness, you know, like those straps that are like, if you fall and you're upside down, you grab onto these things and right yourself or whatever. Like all those were attached. So, I mean, there was probably 50 feet of webbing hanging off of the thing. And I was like, what in the hell is this? But I wanted to have one so I could talk, you know, intelligently about it, or at least, you know, be familiar with it. But it's like, that thing was just a souped up one of their harnesses. So like when I got that platform and I opened it up and it had a safety harness in there, I was like, and I maybe it was in the same order where I bought the other thing. I'm like, why didn't they just pair these two things together if they're going to send me this? Because it's just a waste of money.
Yeah, right. Or just don't include that and sell an even cheaper platform.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I guess like for like cover your ass type stuff, they were the only ones, because there was no, you know, what it was, like the TMA or TSA or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, nobody knew. I don't even know if they have that stuff all covered yet. If they ever finally got to a decision on what actually that is. But they were just probably saying, well, we have to send this with all of our tree stands. This is similar to a tree stand. We're just going to get out in front of it. And so, you know, whatever, kudos to them.
Yeah, good on them.
But like I said, that, you know, that was just like a missed opportunity there, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's why I was wondering if that was like the first one that you bought, because that thing was huge, and it's like they got you. You know, they were like, we're going to put out this big giant thing because they're like, I got big boots and there's no way I'm going to be able to use that. But yeah. And it's funny because I started out with that top stick platform. Like I had like one of the first like out on limb platforms, and it was okay. But I hated setting it. I mean, I say I hate it. I still hate setting up a platform. I absolutely despise it every single time. Like the amount of goddammits and motherfuckers that I say in the tree, in the dark, is, you know, like I said, 20, 30 sits, like I'm in the thousands now for this season alone. And so that's why I like that top stick platform. And it's interesting when you said like how you like the side, you were worried about the side pressure. I never really had that. I had one. It's funny because I had one on, my first one was on the Muddy Pro sticks, and I didn't really have any issues with that. I had one on the B sticks, the B sticks with the holes in it, and I didn't even pay attention to it. I was showing it to one of my buddies, and the stick was actually bowed.
Yeah.
From me standing on it so much for so long with
On
that
the side,
much.
yeah.
And I sent a picture of it to Mario. He sent me a new tube. No problem, no questions asked or anything. So that was cool. But I mean, I used that for a long time until Latitude came out with their platforms. And that's not to say like I had all the other platforms. Like I tried them, but I just hated setting them up. And when Trophyline came out with the Wingman, I used that one quite a bit. And I actually have one of those still to this day, and I set it as a preset. And I'll bring it with me sometimes if I'm like just going to go out and like maybe I'll sit, or if I have all my stuff already set out, I'll just have that along in case I'm not going to go sit there, or I find a different spot and I'll just throw that up and sit on it. But until like Latitude came out with their own platforms, that's when I switched over to using that. But what I thought you were going to say is like I would always end up where I was in like a big knot or something where my stick would land and I couldn't put it like exactly where I wanted to. So then I had to adjust all my sticks or the stick below it, or I had to be on the wrong side of the tree or something. That was really annoying.
Yeah. And to be fair, it was the artisan fabricating top stick thing that I was using, and that was on an XOP three-step stick, like a really big climbing stick that just it was not a good system, and it probably didn't allow me to give a fair shot at the top stick platform because of the stick that I was using.
What's funny is that's the one that I used, and I really, really liked it. And then Dan came out with those ones for the B sticks, and I have one. I used it twice in Ohio, and man, it squeaked so much. Like, and the frustrating thing about it is, like, you could, first of all, putting it on there was really, really difficult. Like, you needed a giant Allen wrench, like, because it had to go through the platform was like, there was like a 10-inch one and a 12-inch one, or like something like that. I think I had the bigger one. So you needed a giant Allen wrench. Like if you ever used one of the Tacticams, like you needed an Allen wrench that was long enough to go like all the way through into that. And then I think one of the issues was that like, all of the stuff for the B stick type stuff is, the quote unquote like claim to fame is like Dan uses it all, it gets put through the ringer. Well, Dan's not sitting in any freaking saddle ever. So I don't think it got the same amount of attention to detail as some of the other stuff did. So
yeah, I think they did that because they felt like they had to. They felt like the saddle game was peaking, and there wasn't a lot of innovation with Beast Gear. They had one set of sticks, two, I guess one with holes, one without, and a stand. There just wasn't a lot of innovation there.
Yeah. It's funny you said that about the XOP, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like, I told you I just set that preset with that Wingman, and I used the set of the shorter XOP sticks, and one-sided steps, they're freaking so heavy, and like just putting one I can't believe that. Like that's what we used to use, like with like the Lone Wolf, like with just the one on each side. Like I'm going up and I'm trying, like, where does my foot go? Like, oh, it's just on one side. Like, what's going on? Like, that's one thing that it was just like we are very spoiled now in what we have. Like how far like the climbing sticks have come And I was going to say this. So when I was texting you today, so like I've been using the Latitude sticks for 3 years, and I just got a new one because I broke one of them. And so, people are going to be like, oh my God, you broke one of the Latitude sticks. Like, I told you they're crap, like whatever. First of all, when I first got them, the first time I ever used them, I did stuff to these sticks. Like I was putting them up in a rainstorm. I had one of them that when I was bringing my bow up or something, I hit my bow and knocked one of them off the tree. So I had to like do all this crazy stuff to get down. I was trying to set my platform. I couldn't do it. I ended up in the wrong spot. And I was on like the bottom step of the stick, like on my knees, on the knee pads, like nothing that you used to ever do. Like it's not advertised on these sticks. And it was fine. It was in the rain. It was in a rainstorm. It was crazy. And I texted those guys like afterwards, and I was like, I just was doing stuff on your sticks that's definitely not like recommended, and they held up really good. So, but I was telling you, like my season's just like I can't buy a deer here. Like it's awful. Well, it was like 2 weeks ago or something. I got out of work, and I was going to the spot that my buddy sent me, and it's like he said it was way back in there. Well, it was fucking way back in there. I was rushing. I got out of work, get all my stuff. I'm going back in there. He's got a camera in there. He's like, just go in there. You go in here. You go way back into this thing. It's super thick. You get in there. As soon as it starts to open up, you won't be able to see the camera, but like just get kind of like to the edge of the opening, and then just find a tree to get up, and you'll be able to shoot, and the camera will be in there, and you'll be shooting over the camera. So I get in there, and I'm looking around, trying to find a tree to set up on. And and then I see all this like really, really fresh, like buck sign, like right where I'm at. So I'm like looking around. I'm like, okay, all right, this is cool. And I'm trying to see like where I can get set up, like where, and he's like, there's some back cover. He hunts in a tree stand. So he's like, he wanted that in front of him. So he's like, you keep that in front of you. And I was like, I was looking for more like back cover, because I have the tree in front of me, and it's just, it's like a old grown up clear cut. So everything's like this big around. Yeah. And so there's some big trees. Anyways, I'm like looking around, and this camera's looking at a scrape, like in this little tiny opening, maybe like 20 or 30 yards across. I set my pack down, and like I find a tree. Like as soon as I set my pack down, I turn around and look at the scrape tree, and like it was like me and the buck that was going there looked at each other at the same time. Like we arrived at the same time. I'm like, God damn it. So he boogers out of there, and then he goes and he stops, and he's like trying to circle me downwind. So I grunted a couple times. So I took those sticks and I was banging them together like I was rattling, and I broke off one of the wings. So I was like, and I didn't even know it because I didn't use that stick. I just threw it down. It was the one that I don't use because I have 3 with aiders and 1 without. That's just in case I need it. So when I was packing up, I was like, why won't this go on there? I was like, oh, God damn it. So I broke one of the Latitude sticks, but because I was banging them together like they were rattling antlers. So
they do sound like they could be intended for that use.
But you just can't really hit them together that hard. It's not recommended. So my fault. But I told you that I would mention that, so I thought I probably should.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's funny. I mentioned like with those trophy line, like those hyperlite platforms, there's just started popping up that those are breaking on people, and they're camming them over. And I guess it says don't cam them over, but I don't know how you would set a platform without camming it over. And then somebody else sent me a picture of one of the whatever Tethered's like budget line platform,
the Workhorse.
Yeah, one of those like broke in half on somebody today.
Jesus.
Like it was like a second sit or whatever.
Maybe those missions aren't looking so bad.
Let's see. That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get lighter, trying to get faster. Trying to you're chasing this stuff, and that's one of the things that, in a roundabout way, like we kind of went down a rabbit hole and all this stuff. But like prior to switching over to a saddle, like what was your setup before?
Phew. So, well, I haven't been bow hunting that long. I've only been bow hunting for like 8 years now. 8 years. 2017, I bought my first bow. So
That was right when the
that
saddles
year,
came out. So
yeah, well, it was like I started working for Exodus in 19. So I had 2 years prior to any like industry knowledge. And the first year, 2017, it was like a climber. It was a Summit Viper climber. And that climber literally made me want to quit hunting. I hated it so much that I just ended up not taking it. And I would just sit on the ground because I literally hated that thing so much. But I knew that I had to be mobile. I knew that I had to be like, I was just trying to learn at that time. So like, I can't sit in the same tree. So if I don't see anything, I'm just not going to learn anything. So I knew that I wanted to bounce around. So year 2, I went to the Hawke Helium hang on with the Hawke Helium sticks. And it was like a hang on and sticks. It was at that time a pretty decent setup. I think that helium stand weighed like 10 pounds, and it was like that was light for the time. And I didn't hate that. And then I started working for Exodus, and that year Tethered had just sent us a bunch of stuff to try out, and I got my fixation with that. And Chad's a very stubborn guy. And he was the I don't need a platform, I'm just going to stand on my sticks kind of guy. And he was using those XOP 3-step, one stick, or one step swivel sticks. So he literally was standing on the tree, like 1 foot on the top one and 1 foot on the middle one. Like, this has to be so uncomfortable. And then we went to that artisan fabricating deal, and then that started the rest of the transition. So I didn't have a long time bow hunting outside of using a saddle. So now it's like, it's just all I can't imagine hunting another way now.
yeah, because like when everybody was like switching over, that was one of the big conversations. Is like there's like a point of diminishing returns,
Mm-hmm.
like on this weight thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to find that like happy medium of like where your system is efficient, comfortable, and I think that's what you and I are talking about. It's like where we've kind of landed, and like it's repeatable. We can do this. Yes, we could chase something lighter. We could not bring this. We could do this. We could, trying to tweak it and get better and better and better. But like we said, okay, and like we had guys that in our Patreon group that would go and they'd like weighed out everything that they were bringing, right? And then they weighed out their climber and the stuff that they brought, and they're like, it weighs the exact same amount. Like, what am I even gaining? And, at the end of the day, you have this like giant thing sticking off your back going through, or you have like this nice little compact backpack setup or whatever, and you're able to kind of sneak through the woods a little bit better. And then you're able to adapt and like, well, I end up hunting the same trees and I'm hunting pole trees, like whatever. That's great. You would have hunted those in your climber. Awesome. But every time you don't hunt that tree, you couldn't have hunted that tree. And so that's where the thing changes. And, but just to be like, oh, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this. I'm going to just keep changing. I'm just going to keep changing for the sake of changing. I think I did a podcast with Cody Rich, and he's like, the people who just keep changing stuff is like they're just trying to control the things that they can control. They can't control the animal. They can't control the hunt. They can't control this. So the thing that they're trying to do is they're just trying to control what they can control. So they're like, I think that it's going to make them a better hunter if they could just change this or change that, because instead of like getting out there and being better, they're just going to keep changing the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had brought up like in my notes or whatever, I wanted to talk to you about like broadheads and stuff, just because like I think broadheads are like the worst product. If you were going to make a product, worst possible thing to get into, because it's either the best broadhead in the world until it's the worst broadhead in the world. It's the greatest thing ever.
It's always the broadhead's fault. It's always the broadhead's fault.
Yeah. Like it was so great. It was so great. And then it fails or something happened or whatever. So what's been your experience? Have you, like, in dealing with like deer and gear and all that stuff, like, have you gone through a bunch of broadheads and kind of looked at them and gone through that, or not so much?
Yeah. So when we were making arrows, it was like a very hot topic with, in my opinion, probably not talked about enough. Everyone focuses on an arrow build or an arrow weight, and you're not paying enough attention to what broadhead you're shooting, because a lot of that arrow weight and stuff, if you don't have the right broadhead, none of it matters anyway. So I think it was a area where I played around a lot, and then same thing, I kind of got to something that I like, and I'm almost scared to change because it hasn't let me down. But I was a mechanical guy prior to being an Exodus employee and learning all about arrows. I was shooting the NAP kill zones, and I will say I killed 3 bucks with those, and I never had an issue. And then we started making arrows and stuff. I started having those conversations with Dorge. I started paying a lot of attention to whitetail adrenaline and like what Jared Scheffler's doing. And I was like, okay, well, I know now that I should be shooting a fixed blade broadhead. I was convinced. I was like, it can't fail. Everyone has like horror stories about rage, mechanicals failing. I had a really good buddy of mine shoot a really good buck with a rage, and it never opened. And I was like, okay, well, I need to shoot a fixed. Around that time, started doing the marketing for afflictor broadheads. So I got to use a lot of their different broadheads. They had a 4-blade, replaceable blade, vented K2, they called it. It was like a 1 inch and an eighth broadhead that just absolutely put a hole in deer. Like it just was coring. Like it just had a coring effect that didn't just slice through. Like it just blew everything out of its way. I used that for a few years and really, really liked it. After that, I went to the Grizzly Stick Samurai, I think it was, or Silver Flame. Grizzly Stick Silver Flame. It's like I need just a cut-on contact, 1 blade, I'll call it, 2 blade, but it's really just 1 cutting direction. I couldn't.
That's that whitetail adrenaline blade.
Yeah, yep. No doubt in my mind that penetration-wise, it is ideal. I just didn't love the flight. I just didn't like the flight characteristics of it. I didn't like how much effort I had to put into tuning the arrows and stuff. I just didn't like it. That led me back to tooth of the arrow, 1 inch vented 4-blade, and I just loved that head. We did a lot of like high-speed testing, shooting, penetration tests, and bleed out tests and all that stuff. And that tooth of the arrowhead it flew the best, it penetrated the best. Obviously, it's small, right? But when you think of, like, go way back, Native Americans, when they hunted big game animals, they used tiny broadheads. And when they shot small game, they used big broadheads. Why'd they use small broadheads? Because they needed to penetrate. And that was like I was like, I just need more penetration. I just want the penetration. I shoot a 27-inch draw. I don't have a ton of energy behind this thing, so that's what I landed on. It has not let me down. The blood trails are not the most impressive things in the world, but the deer are dying within sight. So what else do you want it to do?
So when you were doing all that testing and stuff like that, how much were you looking at, like you said, the energy? Like, so how much were you looking at, like, kinetic energy, speeds, and stuff like that?
We paid attention a lot. And it was more like my every time I built an arrow, it was like I want it to get through the target. I want 2 holes. I want a complete pass through. But I want to get to that point as fast as possible. So there is like that diminishing return point where you can get really, really heavy. And you're going to get 2 holes, but it's going to take way longer to get there. And I had a conversation with the engineers at Matthews, and he was telling me these are, don't quote these numbers, but it was like a 650 grain arrow versus a 450 grain arrow. The 650 grain arrow, you're gaining 3% kinetic energy and you're losing 27% of your trajectory. It's like that, you're not getting anything out of that. Like you're talking about 84 foot-pounds to 89 foot-pounds of kinetic energy when 24 foot-pounds of kinetic energy is going to kill the animal. It's like, what are you giving up? And like the trajectory was a 27% loss of trajectory. It was just like, I took those numbers like, okay, I need to get to that. I need to get to the animal as quickly as I can and then get through it. And that's all I want.
Yeah. And just the reason that I want to talk about that is like, I feel like, you know, it's interesting because I have like with the podcast, we have like almost like a beta test group. Like I have like you could do like a case study, right? So
Sure.
we've got a group of guys that like through the Patreon and all that, like this year we've killed that have been like recorded like 50 some animals. And those are the ones that have been like killed and recovered and all this stuff. But like at our hunt, we had like about 30 guys show up. We killed 10 deer, 2 porcupines and a turkey. We probably loosed another dozen or so arrows, maybe more. We had, I think 3 other hits that weren't recovered, and some of that was like broadhead choice, but then we've been talking like through the Patreon group about guys that have hit deer, not recovered them, things like that. And like as we start to like go back and like kind of go back through and start to look at this stuff, you know, you start to think about, okay, well, what was your broadhead setup? What was your arrow setup? What was this stuff? And you know, for us, like a lot of guys, like right now in my quiver, I have mega meats on, right? And actually, I think I like the dead meats more than the mega meats. They don't have like, they don't open as big, but the blades are smaller, and so they're the same weight, so they're a little bit more robust.
Sure.
Right? But I like the fact that they're the same. Even if they don't open, it's the same hole as the tooth of the arrow, right? Mm-hmm. So even if it is a complete failure, we've got the same hole as your tooth of the arrow. It's like 1.1 inches or whatever. But if it does open, it's a big ass hole, right? Even that being said, if it does open, now we're losing a ton of energy. You know, There's that ton of drag and transfer. And like you said, guys like yourself, who they just hear mega meats are the best, 2-inch opening or whatever, but they might have a 27-inch draw. And like, let's say that you're shooting a 60-pound bow. Well, the kinetic energy there isn't great to start with, no matter the weight of your arrow. And then you're shooting something that's robbing a ton of that, even if you hit it. It
requires it to open.
Yeah. Well, but even if you hit it perfect, it's robbing that energy. And then put a bad hit, put a bone hit, put a, you know, and I think that's one thing that guys are like, I don't want to say like overlooking, but it's like they're just forgetting about. Like, you put so much, and then there's the other side where, you know, there is that the ranch fairy stuff and the single bevel stuff, which there's a lot of information and a lot of science, and there's a lot of stuff behind that. And it's really hard to kind of argue against that inside of, say, 20 yards. But one thing that's like overlooked is a marginal shot with a single bevel broadhead. The blood trails are terrible.
Yeah, you don't have any blood.
And if they don't die like in sight, I mean, last year I shot a deer with I was trying to think as we were going into this podcast, like how many, if I've shot any deer with single bevel broadheads. And I shot one last year with the trad bow. It went about 100 yards. I did not see it fall down, but I saw where it went. And there was no blood trail, like to speak of. There was like a little bit of spray. It was a bad, good hit. And what it was is I shot this deer like it was kind of like slightly quartered away, but it was kind of a longer shot. It was like 22-yard shot with a traditional bow, and she ducked and whirled and made it like a really hard quartering away shot. So it went in like the guts and came out like behind the front shoulder, but it just closed up, like the arrow, like, and whatever like gut got in there and out just plugged up the hole, and it just flapped over, and there was no blood to speak of at all. And so had I not seen or really paid attention to where that deer went, might not have found it till the next day or whatever. And then I shot my buck in Kansas, and like, you know, you had said that there's no failures with fixed blade broadheads. I did, oddly enough, I think it was like just an absolute fluke, but I did have a failure with a fixed blade broadhead. I had one that like missed heat treat or something, because I got some really early broadheads from one of the companies, and I won't say any names because it doesn't matter. But it did have a bleeder, so I did get some blood, but I shot this buck like quarter two, and it hit the last rib. It didn't get heat treat, so the broadhead like folded over completely.
Oh, wow.
Like 180 degrees. It was bent completely backwards. So I didn't get a pass through, so I had one hole instead of two like we talked about. And then it wasn't a great blood trail until maybe 60 yards, 80 yards later. So I was freaking out because I'm like, well, you know, what the heck's going on? But yeah, so single bevel broadheads, like there's that big thing. And it's like, if you make a good shot, if you make a shot too far forward and you hit bone or you hit something, yeah, you're going to punch through it. But if you hit them in the soft spots, you know, you're not going to get a good blood trail. And if you don't watch them die, it's going to be tough. So
it's kind of a nightmare.
It's got to, you know, we need to remember to put some thought and like a little bit of research into what's going on instead of just getting, I guess, like taking somebody else's word for it. Like,
yeah,
because their bow setup isn't going to be your bow setup, and like your results may vary, and that's the biggest thing. And it's funny that you say tooth of the arrow, because tooth of the arrow is a big thing. Like on this podcast, is like there's one of our good buddies like absolutely despises tooth of the arrow broadheads, and I think is because it's just they're super soft metal. So being a fixed blade broadhead in the way that they are, and because they're like milled out of one piece of steel, if you use them and you shoot rocks or whatever, like you can destroy a broadhead, you know, that maybe wouldn't have been destroyed if it was made out of something else.
Yeah,
So.
I have a couple things to touch on there, but the tooth of the arrows, the durability is not great. But for me, if I paid $35 for 3 of them, and I shot an animal with it and it didn't survive the shot, I don't care. I'm just gonna go buy another one because it did what it was supposed to do. Killed the animal, it gets retired, and I have a fresh one to go use. So I do think like the first couple times I shot animals with them, I was like, the blades are nicked up, they're gonna be no good. I got to buy new ones. It's like, okay, well, I didn't pay $100 for 3 of them. I paid $40, and I'm so happy with the flight and so happy with the penetration that I don't necessarily care that much about that. But I want to touch on the single bevel thing. I've shot a buck. The buck I shot in Iowa in 22, I shot with a single bevel. And the only reason I shot it with a single bevel is because I wounded a buck with a different broadhead. I missed 2 coyotes, and I was down to my last arrow. So, and I had a fire knock dagger on there, single bevel, and I made like the most perfect shot that you could make on a deer, straight through the heart. Like I have a picture of the heart with the slit in it, and it shows a little bit of the rotation. Like did everything it was supposed to do. Fresh blanket of snow on the ground. Deer went 80 yards, no blood. I shot it through the heart, no blood. I saw where it went, but I didn't see it go down. And I was like, I had the same exact thought as what you just said. If I shoot that deer in the guts, or if I shoot him in the liver, or one lung, God forbid one lung, and I don't have any blood to follow, I was like, I'm not going to shoot a single bevel broadhead ever again after that. There's benefits to it. You can't deny that it's going to penetrate better than anything else. It has one cutting surface in one direction. I get all that, but like, I just don't shoot him in the shoulder. I talked to, I didn't talk to him. I listened on the way here today to Joel Maxfield talking to Brandon McDonald and Josh Jones about the new Matthews Arc bow. And they were just talking about Joel Maxfield doing the Super Slam and stuff. And he said, like, he was talking about the broadhead thing and was mainly the arrows. And he's like, so you take this 650 grain arrow setup with this 200 grain broadhead on it, and your idea is that if I shoot it in the shoulder, I want it to go through. It's like if you shoot a deer in the ball of the shoulder with anything, it's not going to work. You're not going to get the goal that you would have had. And if you shoot it in the soft part of the shoulder, 80% of the stuff that you're already using was going to work. That extra 200 grains or whatever isn't why you got through the soft part of the shoulder. Like, it goes through that anyway. So the plan B thing, I get it, but it's like plan A should be to stay away from the shoulder.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I'm not knocking single bevel broadheads because of, if you shoot them in the right spot, you're going to kill them. And one of the cool things about, and Josh Mapes shoots the razor broadheads. I've got some razor broadheads. They're great. He says, it takes a little bit of time for them to open up. And if they're going to bleed, it takes a little while. But he said most of them die within sight. And, even like one of our buddies has shot some deer with single bevels, and a lot of times they don't even act like they've been hit. But if you shoot them with a super sharp broadhead and it just zips right through them, they don't even know that they've been hit. And that's great if they can die within sight or die within 80 yards or whatever. But if that doesn't happen, then you got to track them. And it can be said, like, I don't know what your experience is over in PA and like what goes on with like rifle hunting and stuff like that. But like around here, the same thing is like with the straight walled cartridges with the 350 Legend and the 450 Bushmaster. Like, they're shooting these deer at like 300 yards, 250 yards, and they're killing them. And they're like, there's no blood trail. And like, the deer only went 60 yards or whatever, but we had to search and search and search in circles, because it didn't just go down right there and it ran in here, but we couldn't find, there was no blood. So we couldn't figure out what was going on. And it's like, they die and they die quickly, but they don't bleed because you're not getting a pass through. You're just shooting this big ass pumpkin at them and you're causing this really crazy wound channel, lots of shock, but no blood trail, so it's kind of like the same thing.
Yep. I was just gonna say it's the same. And especially when you push the limits of those straight wall cartridges, shooting stuff at 300 yards, like, what do you want that bullet to do?
Yeah. So, being one of the Exodus type guys, where have you moved with cameras and cell cameras and stuff. Cause like in my, like, so I've got some buddies that are using the Moultrie cameras, seem to be real happy with them. They got a lot of cool features, but they seem really damn expensive for the plans. Like it's wild. And, I've been using the Tacticams, but the bitch of it is like, they're not very sensitive. And if you have older ones, like some of them just don't work. Like I've got some of the original ones where they're just garbage. They won't, like, you have to like literally send the camera in for a firmware update. And then some of the other ones, my dad and I both have, like, I forget which version it is, but I've got, I literally shot a freaking bear that was in front of this camera for 5 minutes. No pictures. No pictures. We drive the 4-wheeler in front of it. Pictures.
Yeah.
And then we get a photo dump of 16 pictures of nothing. And it just makes no sense. So Tacticam, I mean, I guess if you just want to keep buying new cameras and upgrading, maybe that's what you need to do. But like for you, going from, being in the know to now you're on the fringes, like, what do you have to tell people?
So this conversation is always, it sucks to have, right? It's like, I just wish I was still using Exodus cameras. Like that's and the statement of like, well, if you use Tacticam, you just have to keep rebuying the cameras. Like that's what we wanted to happen. We wanted people to have that experience and then say, well, you get a 5-year warranty with this one. You don't have to keep buying new ones. But anyway, that didn't work out. So Exodus is going to close down. My first thought, honestly, is like, well, now what am I going to do for cameras? Like, I'm spoiled now. I don't have to pay for the camera. I don't have to pay for the data. I use cameras a lot. So I was like, what am I going to do? Tacticam and Moultrie both had some trade-in program that you could take advantage of if you were an Exodus customer. Send them your Exodus cameras. They'll send you their brand. So I tested Tacticam. I tested Moultrie. The Tacticams took, in my opinion, probably a little better picture than the Moultries that I had. I think what it really boiled down to for me was the app experience. Even at Exodus, when I was developing the user interface of the Exodus app, I really liked Moultrie's app. I always thought that Moultrie had the best app experience, because once you put the camera on the tree, you're done with the camera. Everything else happens within the app. So is the app user friendly? What are the features inside the app? So I always enjoyed that portion from the Moultries better. Downside to both of them, battery life has not been impressive for either. Tacticams take 12, Moultries take 16 AA batteries. That's a big gripe of mine. But I've used a full season this year with the Moultries, the Edge 2, Edge 2 Pro, and now I have some Edge 3s. And they're good cameras. The sensitivity is really impressive. They're taking pictures of deer that you have to like, oh, whoa, I didn't even know that deer was in that picture. You just kind of catch yourself scrolling through. The video capabilities of the Moultrie cameras is really nice. And the app experience is the best. The data is expensive. And I've had some conversations with folks over there and like the marketing department and stuff, and I was like talking to them about like Tacticam and Moultrie and the experience we had at Exodus. And Moultrie Edge 2 you can buy for two for $80 sometimes. Like the upfront cost of the camera is really cheap. With Exodus, it was the opposite. It's like the upfront cost of the camera was more expensive. But our customers, and even people that didn't buy our cameras, their number one question was like, what's the data plan? They didn't ask us how much the camera cost. Tacticam is kind of probably the same way. It's like, they're like, okay, the camera is what it is, but how much do I have to pay to get the pictures? And I asked them about that, and they said they don't hear that a lot, which was really surprising to me. So I don't know if just because the upfront cost of the camera is so much lower that like it outweighs having to pay more for the data. But in my experience, once you run over 4 of them, that number starts to come back down into a similar range than Tacticam. So it's not overly expensive, I don't think. Plus the app experience is a lot better, so you're paying for that. So yeah, I've gone full on Moultrie.
And have you messed around with any of these other ones, like the Blackgate or like what's the Owl Wise Eye or whatever?
No, I haven't. Initially was thinking about the Wise Eye, and I do think, barring not having that trade-in program, I would have bought the Wise Eyes, or I may have even sold all the ones that I traded in and bought Wise Eyes, because they have some pretty good data plan pricing once you get above a certain amount of cameras, which I would have exceeded. The upfront cost of those cameras that steered me away. I do think the battery life is probably better when you consider they only take 8. I always used the Wise Eye solar panel, even on Exodus cameras, because it was a superior panel. Picture quality and stuff seems phenomenal with those cameras, but the upfront cost of the camera, just there wasn't a whole lot of reason to spend that much money when you could get a couple Moultries for $80.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Blackgate has the best data plan pricing for sure. I don't have any experience using them. I've heard their app is not the best. Pictures seem good, but I have never used them. I've used the app. I've used all the apps when we were developing our app. We had to pay attention to kind of like what people liked and what they didn't like from all the different apps, but I don't have any experience with the cameras.
Well, it seems like everybody has cell cams now. I mean, I was gonna say, like, is it even because I mean I remember that was the big thing with Spy Point is that you got like free pictures. So it was like you got 100 free pictures or like however many free pictures. But like, I mean, Wild Game Innovations has cell cams now. Like everybody has them. So
Yep.
But it's just frustrating, where you have the cameras and you're just like, well, I hope these, these are working. And like, that's the thing is like you go pull them and they're just like a dumb camera now because they're still taking pictures. They just don't send them to you. So it's like,
that's from the perspective of coming from like a more expensive camera, it's like, the cheaper ones aren't going to last. They're not going to work like that. Because if the camera, think of it from the business side of it. If they're selling the camera for $60, like they're still making money. So what did it cost them to make that camera? And then you go put it in the woods for 365 days in a year in the elements. It's like take your phone that this thing costs $2,000, go put it on a tree for 365 days and see how long it lasts. It's not gonna last that long. So it's a challenging space. There's so much like technically that can go south with an electronic device that is supposed to take a picture and send it to you instantaneously. It's like we're asking a lot from these cameras. There was a lot of conversations where, like when the stuff with Exodus was going down, right, the cameras weren't working right, the firmware wasn't right. We were going through a lot of problems, and there was 4 guys that worked there, so we all had to like pitch into customer service. And there's people that were telling me that I was ruining their season. Like I literally ruined their season because they couldn't sit on their couch and have a device in the woods tell them when a deer was there. It's like, you need bigger problems, man. Like, we're asking a lot of these cheap cameras. Like if you want it to send it to you every time, probably buy a Spartan.
Yeah, it's today's society, man. Like, we want everything now on our terms, and we don't want to wait. We don't want no for an answer. Me, me,
Yeah.
me, me, me. It's all about me. And we want it the easiest way possible.
Cheapest too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would imagine that, with Exodus cameras and more expensive cameras, there are guys out there, and maybe they're the guys that you're referring to, that it doesn't matter. Like, there are some guys that probably the cost doesn't matter. They want it to work. And, like, even like an outfitter or something like that. Like, you could be ruining his season. You could be ruining his livelihood, in some way. So there are probably things like that. It's funny. I was talking with one of my other buddies about it, and I don't know if this goes into, do you do any filming, like when you're hunting?
I used to, but when it became like my 9 to 5, I stopped.
Okay. I think the Insta360 is like the coolest thing. It like makes it possible even when you hate it and you don't want to do it.
Dude, they're
anymore.
amazing. Yeah.
Super cool, and you can do like a lot with it, and especially if you just want to do it for like social media or whatever. But why I was asking is because it kind of goes along with like the gear thing. Is filming is that rabbit hole where, like, that's what I'm chasing right now. It's like, well, maybe if I buy this, I'll be better. Maybe if I buy this, I'll be better. But I've videoed a whole bunch of stuff with a whole bunch of different cameras. And then I have a A7 III, and I've videoed a recovery of a doe with it when my buddy that does all of our video stuff wasn't there. And like, I watched that footage back, and it's freaking amazing. And it's not me. And I was talking to another one of my friends, and he's like, there are some things, like if you put a certain camera or whatever in somebody's hands, like it makes them better, like immediately. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's any piece of gear that ups your game in that way, like a quality camera can do?
I feel like, I guess it depends on, so the goal for the camera is like to get better footage, right?
Mm-hmm.
The goal for the piece of gear, if you look at it in terms of like what the gear is actually intended to do, yes. But if your goal of buying that gear is like you're going to kill more deer or you're going to kill a bigger buck because you have this gear, then no. But if your goal with a 1 pound climbing stick is to have a better experience climbing that tree, then yes, I do think the gear does give you a better experience in that way. If you looked at me with my climber and then now with my saddle set up, and you said which guy is better at climbing a tree, I'm better with the saddle setup than I am with a climber. So I guess it's a roundabout way to say, yes, it does make me better at what I'm intending to do with it, but that's because the goal of why I'm using it is to get up the tree quicker or quieter. It's not to kill more deer.
Man, I feel like I put it on a tee for you, and you took it a different way. You were supposed to say, this is what I was thinking, because it kind of like went one and the same. Like, do you think like glass, like could make you better? Like, could you be able to see? Could that like make a difference?
Yeah. I will take that softball now. Yeah. There's definitely, when you start learning more about that and you start looking through different glass, and first of all, one of the most underutilized things in bow hunting is binoculars. There are tons of people that just like, well, I'm only shooting 30 yards, I don't need binoculars. If you're sitting in a stagnant tree, that you're a set stand that you're always sitting there, then maybe that's true. But if you're a mobile hunter and you're trying to learn the woods and how the deer are moving, you can pick up so much more with binoculars, like just tail flicks and movement. I'm constantly scanning. One, it keeps you engaged. You're not on your phone or caught off guard. But two, it's a tool that puts you from here to there without moving. You can be in those areas and see into those areas without actually being in there. So this is it's kind of a funny way to tie this in back into cell cameras, but Byron Horton hates cell cameras. Just thinks it's the most unfair thing that you could possibly have. And I said, Byron, well, why don't you take everyone's binoculars away? Or take everyone's spotting scopes away? Because I could sit on a hill 2 miles away and get instant information by looking through these binoculars and then get up and go kill it. It's like the same thing with a cell camera. I don't have to be in those woods to get that information, then I can go act upon it. I'm actually getting that information at a more realistic distance to go capitalize on the information with binoculars. So in my opinion, like, glass and binoculars are equally as effective. If not, if you said, I got to take your glass away, I got to take your binoculars away, or you got to take your binoculars away or your trail cameras away, you can have my trail cameras. Because I'll just get in an area where I can glass and see, and I'll be there without being there, essentially.
And then for bow hunting, like, what's your preferred magnification size, all that?
8 power always. In bow hunting scenarios, if you're going out west and you need to see further, sure, 10 or 12 power binoculars do give you an advantage. 8 power binoculars give you a wider field of view. A wider field of view is going to allow you to gather more light, give you a crisper image, and allow you to see further into those shadows and stuff that a 10 power or a 12 power doesn't give you that same experience. Lower, narrower field of view, gathers less light, is actually worse in low light conditions. So you'll see like 8 by 42 or a 12 by 50. You're actually going to get better low light capabilities out of your 8 by 42 than you are your 12 by 50. The 50 objective is there to allow more light gathering, but the narrow field of view kind of brings you back down to where you were with the 8. So I hunt with a bow hunt with an 8 by 32 just because I want a smaller, a lighter binocular. But 8 by 32, 8 by 42, whichever, that's always the bow hunting go-to.
And so when people are looking at, like, are comparing binoculars or they're comparing spotting scopes or whatever, like, what differentiates one pair from another? You know, you see a pair that says HD, you see a pair that says ED, you see the same pair that says 8 by 32 that's $149, and then you see a pair that's $3,400. Like, what gives?
So most of it's going to be glass in the simplest form. Like the glass that's inside of it is going to be what's driving some of those cost differences, but the coatings on the glass also. So first of all, HD in terms of binoculars literally means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. There's no such thing as HD glass in binoculars. That term just means clear, essentially. It's a marketing term. It's just, if you have, I'll just use Hawke as an example. We have Vantage, and then we have Vantage HD. What the HD means is that's clearer than the one that doesn't say HD. There's no actually like, this glass is HD glass, and that's why we call it. ED glass is a thing. It's extra low dispersion glass. That is an actual type of glass that is inside of that binocular that has an intended purpose. That intended purpose is to have better edge-to-edge clarity. It reduces chromatic aberration or color fringing. So if like you're looking at something and you look at the edges of it, sometimes it'll be like blue or purple. ED glass takes that away and you have a really sharp image. And then the coatings that go on top of that. And then the next step up from ED is apochromatic glass, which is APO, if you ever see that on a binocular. But every step up is just intended to reduce chromatic aberration, give you sharper edge-to-edge clarity so the center of the binocular isn't the only part that's sharp, and give you better light transmission. So for a bow hunter, I always prefer an ED glass. And if you're not buying from Hawke, you got to do a little bit of research. You have to kind of dig into the specifications to figure out if they're using extra low dispersion glass or not. Because a lot of companies will say it's blah, blah, blah HD, but it's actually using ED glass. They just don't call it ED because no one really knows what the heck that means. They just say HD because that means it's clear. So extra low dispersion is the bullet point that you're kind of looking for the best low light performance that's not like $2,000.
And would you say that that's like the minimum that's necessary, or because people are just going to look and say, okay, well, everything basically always ultimately comes down to budget, right? So you just say, I got this much money to spend and I want an all around good pair of, binoculars. And there's, it's a paralysis by analysis, right? It's like, well, there's so many choices, and then you just get the marketing, right? So there are companies that just have the marketing, that have the name recognition, and so you just buy what you know, and maybe it's an inferior product, where you could get something better for the same price, but the marketing is there. There's a lot of that out there with a lot of different companies.
Yeah, that's we're in that boat. But I don't think ED is necessarily the minimum standard if you can't afford it. But what I would say is when you have a pair of binoculars that use ED glass and a pair of binoculars that doesn't, say one is $250 and one is $300, the upgrade's worth it. To have that experience with what ED gives you, you'll pick up more movement in times that you need it because it's so much better in low light. But if your budget's $150 and the ED's $300, I don't necessarily think you should go without having binoculars. I don't think it's worth just not having, but I think having a pair of binoculars in the woods with you gives you a bigger advantage than most people give credit for.
And so how does that translate, like, glass wise to, so I would never have thought about this if my brother hadn't brought it up to me, and he was using like some Vortex whatevers out in South Dakota, and they were just sitting on a knob looking at all these draws, looking for deer, and hours on end. And then one of my buddies was out there with him, and he had a pair of Swarovskis, and he was like, I got to use those. And he's like, the amount of like eye fatigue I got from my binoculars versus his binoculars was, grossly different. What causes that, and why does that happen?
It's a quality of glass thing. If you're looking through binoculars and you're trying to make things out because it's not very clear to you, You're just putting more strain on your eyes. The way the light's transmitted also will play a factor on like how it impacts your eyes. If it's a harsh, not a very good optical system that doesn't transmit light very easily, it's going to be hard on your eyes. But the biggest impact is clarity. It's like how clear it is. Like you could just sit behind that glass forever because you're not like trying to get more out of it than is there. Image stabilizing binoculars, man, takes it all away. It takes like your eye fatigue. The really, really interesting part of that, Hawke doesn't make an image stabilizing binocular right now. And we've gone through these conversations because it's like, well, you give up your field of view. Image stabilizing binoculars have a narrow field of view. You give up glass quality. The quality of the glass is not there. It's not that good. But just the ease of looking through it because you're not trying to hold it steady. Even on a tripod, the wind blows, you get some movement. Like the image stabilizing binoculars on a tripod, you can look through those things forever. So I say clarity is like what's causing a lot of that eye strain, but it's also just the movement.
Yeah, I messed around with those a little bit. When I was in Montana, one of our buddies out there, he bought a pair, and I got to look through them a little bit. And you're right, like the field of view is way different, and it feels like, I don't know, I'm not like one of those nerdy guys, so maybe I'm wrong here, but just like the shape of them and everything, I feel like I'm looking through like the binoculars or whatever they had like on Star Wars. Like they're just like weird, long, narrow shaped. I don't know. It just seems odd. But it was pretty neat. And he absolutely loves them. And it was like, he was fortunate enough to be out there, and one of the local shops, and rightly so, it worked. They were like, hey, you can just take these for the weekend, and if you don't like them, bring them back, and just try them before you buy them. And he couldn't live without them when he came back, so I mean it definitely worked. But yeah, I don't know, just it's interesting. Do you guys think that you're gonna move into anything like that, or?
I push for it every day. I push for it every single day. I think we will. I think we don't want to sacrifice in areas that will just be able to give you a better experience glassing. A lot of the stuff we do is in nature too. So like for bird watching and stuff like that, the field of view matters a lot. The low light ability matters a lot. So how closely you can focus matters a lot. The image stabilizing binocular technology is not like peak. If you just want like great glass, you don't want image stabilizing binoculars. You'll want an ED or an APO or something like that. But I do think we will go that way. Just from a sheer like just hunting perspective, I've had people tell me having them now, they can't go back to regular binoculars, regardless of some clarity things or low light performance or whatever. It's like they're picking up so much more movement and so many more animals because it's still that they can't go back. So yeah, I'm very hopeful that in 26 or 27 that we get to a point where we're happy with what we can provide, and we'll have something there. So stay tuned.
So what's the rundown elevator pitch about Hawke? Because we didn't even get in that you we said you work for Hawke and you do some stuff there. But what is the story behind Hawke Optics?
Yeah, so Hawke is a British-owned, private-owned company. So it's a father and two sons that own the company. It's pretty unique. It's not some private equity firm that owns it. It's just a family-run business based in the UK. So the company started over there in 99, I think, is when the company started. And then in 2007, we came to the US. So Our U.S. headquarters is in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Been making glass and stuff in the U.S. markets for 20 some years. Interesting, back to the crossbow conversation. When you think of Matthews as a bow company, you think of top tier, right? You think they're not going to settle for anything. They don't have to. They're Matthews. Matthews owns Mission crossbows. All Mission crossbows come stock with a Hawke crossbow scope on it. So that says a lot about the quality that you're getting. Same lifetime no fault warranty that every other manufacturer has. It's just kind of like more grassroots, I guess, is the outlook on it. We have like an in-house company sales force. It just ran like a family-run grassroots business that just cares about the end consumer and the people, and it's not just this big marketing machine. It's just good products, like really great price. Our tagline at Exodus was like, quality trail camera shouldn't cost a fortune. Believe that to be true, but it's even more true with where I've found myself at Hawks. That quality glass shouldn't cost a fortune. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. You don't need to pay $4,000 for a good pair of binoculars. We make some really, really, really solid stuff at a really, really fair price, and it's backed for life.
And how long have you been there?
11 months. Yep. December 31st was the official close of Exodus. I started with Hawke January 2nd. So I'm the marketing manager over there. So it's not yet a big marketing machine, but let me get some time in there, and things will start shaking out. But no, I'm really happy with it. I had used other manufacturers' binoculars and glass and stuff before. I didn't know who Hawke was. How can you trust what I'm about to say? Because I work there. But the $600 pair of binoculars that I was using, I prefer the $400 pair that I'm using from Hawke. So the value is incredible. But we have, if your budget is on the $100 range, we have that. If you're looking for a $1,000 pair of binoculars, we have that. So we do a lot of different stuff. Rifle scope side of things is really crazy. We have like 180 different rifle scopes in our catalog. That's the majority of the business for sure. We do some we do some caliber specific optics that are really cool. We have a straight wall scope that is etched yardage markers right in it. Straight wall cartridges ballistically are very similar from the 350 Legend, 4570, 450 Bushmaster. Like, they're not that much different. That if you just tweak the magnification range, your holdovers are going to line up perfectly regardless of the grain weight. So it's really cool stuff on the caliber specific side. It kind of is like a little niche that we kind of do really, really well in.
Interesting. And where can everybody check that out? Like, where's the best place to find the information on that?
So hawkeoptics.com is going to be kind of your information gathering means. But we are the industry that we work in is built on the back of dealers, bow shops, archery shops, gun shops. We don't advertise selling direct at all. We want you to go to your local dealer. If your local dealer is not stocking Hawke, ask them for it. If you don't have a local dealer, of course, there are online avenues that you can buy at Amazon, Optics Planet. You can buy directly from our website. But we really encourage supporting your local dealers and local gun shops and bow shops to purchase our products. But you can learn anything that you want to on our website, hawkeoptics.com.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to have to do this again. This was fun. Like I said, I hadn't done a gear podcast and just kind of like went through any of the, I guess, kind of like the old stuff we used to talk about, not just so much about deer hunting tactics and stuff like that. So I really did enjoy it. So thanks for taking the time with me tonight.
Yeah, man, we barely scratched the surface. We just talked about kind of a lot of different avenues and what is going on now. But if you ever want to dive deeper into a specific topic, I'm all game.
Absolutely, man. Well, I will definitely do that. I'll just have to figure out. And if there's something that you want to talk about too, just hit me up and say, hey, I was just thinking about this. Let me know, and we'll get her going. All right.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is the Hunt Stand Podcast. I'm your host, Will Cooper. Each week, we bring you real hunting stories, proven strategies, and dive into the topics hunters care about most. From chasing your first whitetail to planning a western elk hunt, we cover the conversations that matter to every hunter out there. Tune in, subscribe, and join the hunt, only on the Hunt Stand Podcast.